Studios presents the More Better Narrative podcast. This is episode 108 with BJ McMurtry and Jesse Annell.
Her in a picture.
Today's episode brought to you by Wendy's. Please give us money, Wendy's. Actually, I would be perfectly comfortable being sponsored by Wendy's and not getting paid, but getting paid in, like, fries and burgers.
I tell you what, like Rob and I are both like our burgers.
Yeah.
A very, to the point that I had to go back the next day to see if it was as good as the first one that I got. Because I went to Burger King and they have this new mushroom Swiss burger. And I was hungry after work one day, and the Burger King in King of Prussia used to not have a drive-thru, but they remodeled it, and now they do. And I get food from Wendy's all the time, so I wanted something different. So I went there and I tried their new mushroom Swiss burger, and I got home and I was like, "Holy fuck!" I was like, I have never had a fast food burger that good. And to my point, the next day I was just like, I've got to go back. It was good enough that and admittedly it wasn't as good as I remembered from the day before for whatever reason, but it was still one of the best. And to this day, every time I get it, it's still pretty good. So if you want to do a fast food burger, we're sponsored by Wendy's, but apparently we're talking about Burger King.
Burger King is the best. Sponsored by Wendy's.
But yeah, that's a pretty good.
I rewatched Idiocracy, and there was that part where they introduce you to the cabinet, and he's like, and I'm the secretary of what was it, defense or something, brought to you by Brando. And he's like, why do you keep saying that? Because they give me money every time I say it. Smartest person on earth, you should know that.
I like Horatio Sands'
Yes.
character in that movie. I haven't watched that movie in a long time.
It was on TV, and I only got to see a clip of it, so I found it online and watched the whole thing.
I love how, and I forget when the movie came out in the context of reality TV, what was going on with reality TV. But I really like how Mike Judge has this, in that movie distilled reality TV to its essence.
Ow, my balls.
Yeah, because
and I object that he interrupted me while I was watching Ow, my balls.
But the fact that the most popular show in the fucking world is this reality show where it's literally a guy getting kicked in the balls for the whole show.
And by various things, because he lands on what's it, the cutting horse kind of thing, and then he lands on a fence, and then he's falling, and it has and then what was the number one movie was just called Ass.
Yeah.
But the best is the speech at the end when he becomes president. And he's like, and we're gonna make movies with context, so that when you see that ass, you're gonna want to know who that is and why they're there.
Yeah. I love that. That movie is horrifying on a couple of levels. You're like, oh fuck, this is actually happening.
They're walking through Costco, and he's like, are we there? Are we getting close yet? We've been walking forever. He's like, yeah, we're almost there. I know this place. This is where I went to law school. At Costco.
Yeah. Yeah, that movie's fucking amazing.
I love that the term when you just say something similar to bro or something, they call him scrote. Chill out, scrote.
I just can't wait. I can't wait for and this is going to happen. I mean, it's got to happen. I mean, it already happened with an actor. We already had Ronald Reagan. And I forget what movie that was where somebody was in a coma or came back from the the past or whatever, is like in present day and talking like, who's the president? Ronald Reagan. You mean the actor?
No,
like,
it's Back to the Future.
Yeah, Back to the Future. Back to the Future.
He goes back and he asks him.
But think how absurd that is. But like we're even closer to having our first wrestling or sports figure. Like, I mean, and if you think about it too, like we've had like Eisenhower was like a rock star in his day. He was like the fucking Allied commander in World War II. I mean, like, so I mean, it's not like that. I mean, Jesse the Body Ventura, Mr. President. Like,
I'm just waiting for.
And honestly, if he hadn't have gone off the deep end with fucking all that conspiracy shit, he might have been in the contention for that. And like, we were horrifyingly close to having Arnold Schwarzenegger run for president. Like, he was just a couple of charges of sexual abuse from people.
Well, also can't with the whole specifically Obama's thing where people were requesting for his birth certificate. I guess because Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't born. He wasn't born in Austria.
That's what was funny about that, because and this is really fucking bizarre when you think about who was bitching about what. When they were asking, the people that were asking for Obama's birth certificate were the people a few years before that were trying to change the law. They were bitching about Obama and his birth certificate so Schwarzenegger could run. Because they were specifically, because there is a law, in reference to having, having to run for president, you have to be a U.S. citizen born in the United States. Or like in a military base, or something affiliated
on U.S. property somewhere, or sanctioned.
They were because Arnold Schwarzenegger was born in Austria. They were trying to change that law. The Republicans were like, and not only the Republicans, like the exact Republicans, like to the point that that's how they knew that law existed. Because when they were, and the fucked up thing, like. Obama was born in Hawaii, but Hawaii, and this is where a lot of people get confused. According to things that I've read, Hawaii doesn't actually have birth certificates, and this is where people get hung up on that. They just call it something else. So whenever they ask him to produce his birth certificate, he physically can't produce it because they have this other document that's the equivalent of that. But it's fucking retarded.
It's called "You Done Be Born, Man." Except that's Jamaica.
Well, he wasn't born in.
I just realized I grabbed club soda mixer and not.
I was really hoping
water.
that was vinegar.
No, unfortunately not. It's just bubble water.
Bubble water. When you pour a little soda in that for you, buddy?
I think I'm good.
You think you're good?
I'm good.
You good with a little club soda?
I'm good. Club soda. Gas water is what they call it in Europe. You gotta fart into a.
Have you
water.
farted into one of those before?
No.
That would be the perfect, like...
Is it?
Go!
The only thing I would be afraid of is being able to pull it out and cap it fast enough so that it actually keeps it.
Well, I think...
Unless it has, like, self-capping technology, so that when the second you remove it...
Or if you just had the cap up there.
You'd have to have some pretty trained muscles to be able to screw on.
Well, it's not going to be easy.
It's not going
to be easy. I'm just saying. I mean, we're going to have to. An intensive regimen of training is going to have to go into. Like, I mean, you're going to have to work at this. I'm not doing it.
You might have to thread your butthole.
You might have to thread your butthole. Oh my God.
So everything comes out as a spiral.
Oh. We can't talk about that anymore. I threw up when my parents changed my diaper. And by the way, that's not a joke.
Moving on. So we have a couple emails.
Okay.
One is from Bernhard, and I think we were a couple episodes we were talking about. I think the same thing of having like celebrity presidents, and so Bernhard. Messaged in response to that President Macaulay Culkin
Never gonna happen.
Why not?
Nah, he's too big a fuck up. I mean, honestly, if you're being serious about it, like George Clooney, he, in our lifetime, I'd say there's a good 50-50 shot.
Leo DiCaprio?
Nah, he likes the lady. I mean, he would be like the modern day JFK.
He's also never won an Oscar.
Which is weird when you really think about it.
All the good movies he's been in.
Well,
I think Titanic might have sunk him.
And talking about him, like in reference to like Titanic, his career arc after Titanic, I think, is kind of worth talking about in the sense that he very easily could have just become a short-term heartthrob and done a series of
Teen Beat, like he's the cute dude in all the movies, and then
but his whether it was him or his management or his agents just made a conscious decision not to do that, because if you remember the movie he followed up Titanic with was that movie The Beach. And people were like, what the fuck? And this is worth mentioning, the director of that, I think that was a Danny Boyle movie, maybe. But Danny Boyle at some point was involved in that, to the point where he changed the ending of the movie from the book, because in the book, I forget what happens in the book, but he like either goes crazy and stays on the island, or everyone dies, or whatever. But it didn't have this happy.
Yeah, it was Danny Boyle.
It didn't have this happy ending, to the point that it pissed, because that movie was based on a book, and the author of the book was so pissed off at Danny Boyle about changing the ending of that, he was like, he confronted him about it, like at a party or something, and was like, but that led to him changing the ending of that, led to the author of that book was somehow involved in that movie 28 Days Later, and was like, if you fucking change anything about this movie, I am fucking going to kill you. And Danny Boyle was just like,
okay.
But I love Danny. There's a new Danny Boyle.
I love that 20. I posted a while back. I'll have to put up the image.
But he's done so many good movies, and he did a sci-fi movie just out of left field one time that no one ever talks about, and it didn't get a good theatrical run. And you never hear people talk about it anymore. And I don't even know. And he got that like electronic band Underworld to do the score for it. It was a movie called Sunshine. And
I think I've heard of it.
It's fucking amazing. It's not the greatest science fiction movie ever, but it's a really good Danny Boyle movie. And it has all the things that, it has good dialogue, and the set pieces are amazing in it. And but he he puts out a movie almost every year. He puts out, I did not really like that movie he did recently called Trance that much, but for the most part, he did Train Spotting. I mean, you can't really fuck with him. Well, and like one of his first movies was, I remember like because Train Spotting was the movie that got him famous, but before he did Train Spotting, there was a movie he did called Shallow Grave. That's one of the best thrillers ever made. Like, that movie's amazing. But it's about these people that have a flat in London or England somewhere, and they have a spare bedroom that they're trying to rent out, and they rent out the bedroom to this guy, and the first night that this guy moves in, he dies. So they go in and look at the guy's stuff, and he has the only thing he has is a suitcase full of $1 million. And they're pretty sure that nobody knows that he moved into this place. So what do they do? And that's why the movie's called Shallow Grave, and it's like them dealing with the implications of their decision to keep the money.
1994.
But that movie's fucking amazing.
And then he did Trainspotting.
And then he did Trainspotting. But people always...
He also did Slumdog Millionaire, which I've never seen. And also that movie with James Franco, 127 Hours.
That's right, he did do that. I think he's an amazing... I think he is probably one of the few directors today that you could compare to Stanley Kubrick. Mm-hmm. You know, like he picks a genre.
Well, the other thing is that, and this is, the first time I saw this was in 28 Days Later, I was very enamored with him with his choice of what he was shooting on. Mm-hmm. Like, he specifically decided to use lower quality cameras, which were I think Sony DV cameras, to shoot on to get that, gross, grainy look. And I was really impressed at his choice in what he's shooting on, depending on what movie and what feel he's going for. However, I did take a screen capture of 28 Days Later and posted a while back where that scene when the dad is freaking out because it drops
right.
There's this great shot. I paused the movie and took a screenshot of it, but one of the wider shots of the dad and the military coming in, you can see in the right corner one of the camera ops on the ground with the camera sitting on a sandbag shooting the down angle.
Wow.
But it's only for a few frames.
How did you catch that?
I was watching it and I was like, is that another gunman? And so I scrolled it back. I was like, that's too big to be a gun. Oh, that's a Sony DV cam. It was good. Our second email is a spam email, but I love these spam emails.
Oh, right,
They're so good. It's from Dana Jeffrey.
Okay. We should Google Dana Jeffrey's name.
The subject is
audience. Google.
Dana Jeffrey.
Yeah.
DANA.
Could be a guy. Could be a girl. We don't know.
Exactly. The subject is hello. If that doesn't pique your interest, I don't know what will. My company, Daisuke Holdings LLC, DAISUKE Holdings LLC, is requesting your services to sue a client for a breach of contract.
Now, what about us would make you think that our services would be qualified to...
Apparently, they're requesting our services to sue a client for a breach of contract. If you handle such cases, please advise or kindly make a referral. That's the whole email.
We should refer Matt Weed.
You should talk to Matt Weed. Atomium amplification. He'll help you out.
Yeah.
Or something.
Our fixture amp. Whatever.
Speaking of Matt Weed, we have an email from Matt Weed.
I was actually in front of him when he emailed.
He emailed me while Tiger Flowers was playing.
I was sitting right there talking to him.
So we have an email from Matt Weed, and his subject is simply question. Who would win in a fight, Ebola or gluten intolerance?
I think Ebola, and I'm just going to go with turning your organs into liquid, is just fundamentally, a little more hardcore.
Yeah, but what is more likely to happen to you, Ebola or gluten intolerance?
You're not going to get the annoying hipster factor with Ebola. It's not like...
I got Ebola before it came to the U.S.
Yeah.
I had Ebola's first record. The demos were the best thing they ever did.
You're not going to get, people with ironic mustaches bitching about I can't eat that. Making everyone feel awkward.
I can't eat that. My stomach's already
I can't go eat at that
deteriorating.
restaurant because they don't have anything gluten free. I'm sorry. I mean, we finally found something more annoying than vegans. How is that even possible?
Well, Dave always jokes. He's like, I love these people that are like, gluten. I can't have gluten because it makes me sad and it makes me fat and it makes me this thing. And
yeah,
then
but it also makes you a dick.
Yeah. But then they go to the bar and they drink beer.
Right.
And other things that contain gluten. So, Ebola wins out in the physical fight factor, but gluten intolerance wins out at the annoying dick factor. Plus, I'm fairly certain if Ebola was a physical person,
he'd be German.
And if gluten intolerance was a physical person,
he'd be the German guy from that movie, Hannah. Have you ever seen that?
Yes.
He'd be the German guy in that movie.
Oh, that guy.
That guy's so creepy.
One of my favorite shots in that movie was the continuous one, the fight in the underground subway part. That was
amazing.
all one shot, and it was beautiful.
I think that the German guy in that movie is a movie bad guy on the level of I forget the actor's name, but that movie No Country for Old Men.
Yeah.
I think that if he had just a little more screen time in Hannah, he would be right up there with that. That character, because he is so and I love how he dresses and the body, because if you see that actor who played him in other movies, his body language is completely he's really acting in that role. But the thing that kills me about that character is how he dresses and how he holds his head, and he's just so kind of proper and shit, but he hangs out with these not just degenerates, but hardcore, specifically skinheads, and he's just and he's like this, and not just, and he's not just a bad kind of sleazy dude, but he's a sexual degenerate to the point that he doesn't even have a problem talking about it, and he's. But I really think that the one thing that could have made that movie a lot better, and I love that movie, is if that character had been a little more fleshed out, and maybe had a couple of more scenes just to show how fucked up he was. But I really that when you first meet him, when he's in the club and the what's her name comes to talk to him, that whole scene, you're just like, what the fuck is going on with that guy?
I enjoyed the I forget what relation she was to him, but the dude that has the creepy funhouse.
Oh yeah,
I love that.
Well, and the thing, and that director obviously could have been a Danny Boyle movie. Mm-hmm. Just the whole feel of it, and the way he put together the soundtrack in that movie was very Danny Boyle-esque. It was I really like that movie. Mm-hmm. The whole sequence when she's in the underground thing, and she she's in the room, and she gets out of the room, and the whole sequence where she and then she comes up out of the ground. That whole scene is just you're with the music playing, and the music's so out of context with what's going on, but it fucking works. If you were a director and you were putting that scene together, well, what kind of music do I need to have? The music that he actually chose for that, and for the whole movie, because I think he had the Chemical Brothers or one of those, or Crystal Method or one of those bands actually did the whole soundtrack for that movie. But the music for that scene is so counterintuitive for what's going on, but it really, really adds to the level of intensity. But anyway, watch that movie.
Yes, it is good. 1997.
What?
No, wrong one. Wait, no. No, wrong one. Oh, there's multiple. Oh, of course it pulls up Hannah Montana.
I think it came out 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh, here we go. 2011. It's because I spelled it with a second H, that's why. Director was Joe Wright. I love the IMDb trivia stuff. That's how I learned about it. I watched, that movie, Midnight Cowboy?
Uh-huh.
That scene where they're walking down the street.
That was improvised.
And the taxi cab, it broke through the barrier and almost hit them.
Yeah.
And so he starts freaking out. And the best is the fact that A, he keeps in character the whole time. And then B, the comment he made afterwards was completely improv. as he's walking away. Because he dropped his cigarette because he was screaming. So he starts getting out a new cigarette, and he says, "Oh, by the way, that's a good way to collect insurance."
Right. Now, that's a great movie. I downloaded an audiobook by cracked.com. Mm-hmm. It's You Might Be a Zombie and Other Bad News is the name of the book, I think. But it was basically like a book of lists, and it listed like one of them was like things that artists are famous for that they didn't actually do. And this one thing and the list was pretty interesting, but there was one thing in there that fucking blew me away. What's that guy that directed the first two Tim Burton?
Yeah.
What's he most famous for? Or in terms of like great movies that he's done, like what would you...
Nightmare Before Christmas?
He didn't direct that.
Really?
Yeah. Look it up. I swear to God. And I was just like, what? It's literally called Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah. Well, when they talked about that, he didn't direct that fucking movie.
Henry Selick.
Yeah.
He helped write it.
Right.
He did not
and he
direct
produced it.
Yeah.
Which is why he gets the, but it's actually a Tim Burton Presents Nightmare Before Christmas. He didn't actually direct that movie.
One of the trivia things, Danny Elfman found writing Nightmare's 10 songs as one of the easiest jobs I've ever had. I had a lot in common with Jack Skellington.
I think Danny Elfman and Tim Burton were original member because the band, The Residents, which are these guys that wear masks and no one knows who is in the band, and they write this really weird music. But I forget how many. I think there was like 3. But anyway, like at one point in the late 70s, early 80s, like 2 of the members left the band, and it was just whoever was originally left in the band. But I think. Well, and one of the things that they were the Residents were famous for was their use of horns in their kind of weird, kind of chaotic compositions that they were writing. And if you listen to Danny Elfman's music, and there are 2 things, and the relationship that Danny Elfman has with Tim Burton, they always collaborate together. Mm-hmm. And I think that relationship goes back to when they were in the Residents. But if you listen to Danny Elfman's music, especially like his film score stuff, his use of horns is exactly the same as the early Residents stuff in terms of how they used horns. And the Tim Burton thing, I think, goes even farther. If you look, because right up until the point that the 2 anonymous members left the band, they were doing a lot of film stuff. And you can watch that stuff on YouTube if you type in Residents and you go back far enough. You can find some of the early stuff that they did in the 70s. And if you compare that footage to early Tim Burton student film stuff, it looks remarkably similar. So I mean, I don't know if that's true or not. That's just me speculating. But
Jesse's conspiracy theory.
But I think that Tim Burton and Danny Elfman may have been. Are in some way affiliated with the band The Residents. But
do you remember the Family Guy Star Wars episodes? Mm-hmm. They did that. There was the episode 4-1 where they actually had John Williams and the London Symphony Orchestra there.
Right.
And then when he came back and his aunt and uncle are burnt. John Williams and the orchestra is all burnt. And he's like, oh crap, now we have to do the rest of this thing with Danny Elfman. And it's like... I was reading online... Cuts Danny Elfman down with the lightsaber.
I was reading online that they're... and this was so fucking nerdy. And I... At one point, I had to stop myself and going, God damn it, I'm a fucking nerd. But this guy posted this link on Facebook to... who killed Ben and whatever, like Luke Skywalker's aunt and uncle, like who really killed him, and then he had this whole conspiracy thing worked out on what really happened to them, and it wasn't like he postulated that it wasn't the stormtroopers, like Obi-Wan Kenobi had hinted at, or flat out said in Star Wars, but it was actually Boba Fett that had killed, because if you go back and look at the the digitally remastered scene when Han Solo is at the spaceport, Boba Fett is there behind Jabba the Hutt. Mm-hmm. So he was there on the planet when that happened. And there's a scene, even in the original movie, where Darth Vader, when he has all the bounty hunters lined up, talks about like he wants Han Solo, or he wants them alive.
Oh, and he specifically says to Boba Fett.
And not only that, but he looks at Boba Fett and says, "Don't disintegrate anybody," like, because like that had just happened, like he had just done that, and but yeah, I was like, that does kind of make sense, because the way that the body, like, and the guy even makes the point that the stormtroopers, those bodies were incinerated, which is not just like shot with lasers. I mean, those and the building was just destroyed, like somebody intentionally
just obliterated it.
Not just like roughed them up and shot them. Like somebody like actually fucked them up, like above and beyond the Call of Duty. And but he and I was like, that does make a certain amount of sense. But yeah, I thought that was. As I was reading that, I just had to stop myself and going,
sci-fi conspiracy theories.
I was just like, I gotta really reevaluate my life.
All right, and last email from Phil B.
Is this our first email from Phil?
No, he's emailed before, I believe. Yeah. So his the subject is sup.
Sup, brah.
First, just got my copy of Flies to Flame. Wonderful stuff. Love it. The packaging is great, as are the tunes Rosetta rocks. Anyway, question. What are your thoughts on Mastodon's use of the twerking girls in their video for the Motherload? I've read some commentary where the band is being absolutely blasted for degrading women and yada yada yada.
That's an interesting thing. And
I watched that video, and I think last week we talked about the fart remix. No, fart remix of the Nicki Minaj video. And then we got into the Mastodon video.
The Mastodon argument is fucking retarded. For a couple of reasons, and I'm sure if Mark was here when you were talking about this, he brought this up. They're from fucking Atlanta, which is literally where twerking started. So like it's actually like a kind of a cultural thing where they're from. And two, that argument, and I don't know if you read it, and if you haven't, you should, because it completely shuts down the argument. But one of the girls that was in the video, and they posted it on Lambgoat, wrote a response like a couple of days after all the criticism started, and her response, point by point, just breaks down any argument that you could make about any criticism you would have about that video. And I'm not going to recap it all because it's been a couple of weeks since I read it, but I would just recommend looking that up and reading that, because she completely shuts down that argument or anything that you could say about them negatively. And
she was one of the dancers in the video.
And she very articulately says, look, anybody criticizing them in the video is just way off base. and that being said, the video made me very uncomfortable when I watched it, and I'll tell you why. And when I was watching the video, I was like, it's just something that it's like somebody put a little something in my something, like somebody put a little chocolate in with my peanut butter. Like, I'm not like, give me a second to process this. Like, I thought the video was really cool. It wasn't, and the way a lot of people criticized
the excessive use of slow motion.
Well, the criticism made the video sound like it was just the band playing with these big booty girls like shaking their butts. That's not what the video, like it actually had like a visual style, that there was maybe a narrative to it. Like it wasn't just
like a camera with the band with people.
It wasn't like this gratuitous. It may have been close to over the top, but like it wasn't just the whole video was girls twerking. I mean, there was stuff going on in the video, and that happened to be a part of it.
They had some pretty cool costumes in there that weren't skin tight, crazy things.
Yeah, I thought that I thought the video was very well done. I don't even know if I like the video, but like it was definitely like, I was like, oh, like I didn't really, when I was watching it, my reaction to it was like I said, it made me a little uncomfortable, like, because I was like. But then when I thought about it, I was like, well, that's actually kind of interesting. But I think a lot of the criticism was just kind of stupid.
I think I know what the theme of the next Rosetta video will be.
What, camel toes?
And how. I like to read the video as a commentary on all that is wrong with the corporate music machine that raises artists like Nicki Minaj because of their physical attributes rather than their talent, as well as the industry that makes being a video bimbo a viable career option.
I think you're overthinking it, brah. I think, just drop your pants. Just let nature take its course.
Drop your pants, grab the tissues, you're good to go. Another question. When's Rosetta coming to Alaska? There is a... I don't know what that word is. Dearth? D-E-A-R-T-H. Is that a word?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I didn't know. I learned a new word today.
I'm just assuming.
Oh.
Dearth is actually the polar opposite of Earth.
Oh. Let's hit define. Oh, look at that. A scarcity or lack of something. There is a dearth of evidence. All right.
Oh, look at somebody using big words like that shit.
Yeah. Phil, you just learned us something. There is a dearth of decent music up here, and unless it's the Chili Peppers, Seether, or some lame country artist, we are starved for good outside acts. We have no idea when we'll make it up there. We wanted to play up there a couple of years ago, and that fell through. The plan for next year is to do Europe, and the year after that to possibly do Japan, so maybe we'll get there in the next 3 years.
What you need to do, Phil, stop fucking bitching about when they're coming up there. You need to be more proactive than that. If you want to see your favorite bands up there, you need to get off your fat ass, and yes, I said fat ass. Put together a fucking festival. Book some goddamn bands. If you want to see a band, fucking book Rosetta to come up there and play at your huge Alaskan festival.
If you book it, they will come.
Yeah.
Kind of like Wayne's World 2. Except don't book Aerosmith.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Don't book Aerosmith. Or pretty much any of the bands that they booked on that festival. Another question. Have you heard Abandon? This was a running thing last week. Rob was apparently listening to nothing but Abandon, and he was getting sad because of it. So, have you heard of Abandon? Have you really listened to Abandon? Have you heard the message of our Savior Abandon? Maybe I should check this Abandon thing out. See, MBN is an influence of the tens of 5 kiddos listening out there. I hope it proves to be a good one. Another question. BJ, what is your beard care regimen? Ever get beard sickles? Good times. Many write-ups about them here. And I guess it's...
I had a weird thing happen last year.
Have you ever had a beard?
No, not like yours.
Can you grow a beard?
Oh, I can have a beard by tomorrow.
I want you to have a beard.
Okay. I can't really have a beard, though. for an obvious reason. You want to know what the reason is?
Maybe.
When I have a beard, I look like Bluto.
I forgot about that.
And,
wait, what was the alternative to that? Having long hair. What did you say you?
well, last year when it got so cold so quickly. Remember, like, it got really fucking cold.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in my apartment, and I did something without thinking about it with horrifying consequences. And I'm sure this has happened, like what he's talking about, like beard sickles. I was taking a shower, and I got out, and I got dressed, and I didn't, it had gotten so cold so quickly, I hadn't acclimated to, like, how, I mean, because it was, like, in the teens, like, it was fucking cold. And it was in the morning, and I took a shower, and I get out, I get dressed, get all my shit together, and walk out the door within, like, under 10 minutes of getting out of the shower. By the time I got to my car, my hair was completely frozen. I mean, to the point, like, I didn't just have icicles in my hair, I had ice dreadlock. Like, it was like, and I got into my car, and I was like, what the fuck? You know, my hair completely, like.
That happened to me when we did the Kylesa tour in Canada. Because, like, you load out right after the show, so my beard is just soaked in sweat. We go outside to load out the gear, and my beard becomes a solid. And it's like,
all of a sudden you're just like talking to BJ, and BJ's head just goes.
Well, I did that. It was actually at one point we walked out there, and I'm starting to load gear, and I go like this to look down to like what I'm picking up, and for a second I actually had to like break the icicles in my beard because I couldn't look down. It was just like I was like stabbing myself with stuff as I looked down. That was fun. So, beard care regimen. I shower, I shampoo, I condition, and then I comb it. I've been told that I should use this. This is like beard oil or something that you can put on. But, I mean, I keep it pretty well groomed, and my beard's pretty soft to begin with, so I don't think I need...
Soft like a baby's butt. A big hairy baby.
Big hairy baby. Ever get beardsicles? We talked about that. And last question. How does Mike Armine live so fat and stay so skinny?
Drugs. Hardcore math.
When we talk about his meth lab, doing his veggie oil stuff, there's also the
actual meth.
The actual meth lab going on there.
What's fucked up is, you know how like they make the big sheet of crystals, and then they break it up, and they make the little meth crystal.
I know this because of Breaking Bad.
Right. Well, you know, duh. He just keeps the one big crystal. You know how big that pipe is? It's fucking insane. He cuts it in half, folds it over, cuts it in half again. It's like a big pancake of like crystal meth that he puts in a bowl that's like the size of... It's like a 50-inch bowl that he just stacks full of meth.
An industrial strength bowl.
Yeah.
Just shoves it in there.
Yeah. He smokes like 4 pounds of meth at a time. It's fucking insane.
Man's a trooper. Man is a trooper.
His, like, when he blows out is enough to fuck up an entire small town. Like, not even that small. I mean, like a mid-sized level city.
Mike Armine. He's going to have chickens on his roof. I don't know if he's actually... I hope he doesn't do that. He wants a chicken coop on his roof. I feel bad for those chickens.
Oh, fucking horrible for those chickens. Like, holy shit.
Plus, you know his dogs will figure out a way to get up to the roof and eat all the chickens.
Maybe he should just raise, like, genetically engineered dogs that can lay eggs. Solve that problem. What do your dogs taste like? Come on, BJ.
Like chicken?
I'm thinking they'd be... they can't taste like beef. I'm thinking more like pork.
The other white meat?
From what I've heard, when you eat like dog or cat, like if you go to like a shitty Chinese restaurant where they're actually serving cat or dog to you.
I don't think I've ever been to one that shitty, at least not that I've known of.
Well, this is how you can tell. From what I understand, I've never had this happen to me or noticed it if it had happened to me. But apparently when you eat dog or cat, like one of the things that happens in a human when you eat those two animals, because we're not used to eating them, we're not acclimated to eat them, is you start to sweat. So, if you're ever at a Chinese restaurant and you're starting to sweat...
See, I'm not sure I would ever be able to figure that out, though, because I always get stuff super spicy.
Right.
And I end up
apparently it's
anyway.
kind of an oily sweat, from what I understand. But anyway.
So your body's trying to, like, push out
like,
the
what
toxins.
The fuck are you...
What the hell are you doing? Get this out.
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know. That's just what I've heard. I don't know if that's true. I read a lot. And I retain an amazing amount of useless trivia.
Speaking of useless trivia...
Oh, shit.
The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were originally a parody of Daredevil, and both Daredevil and the Turtles were created from this same accident.
At the same time, the same continuity? Like what does that mean?
I don't know. Let's check out the Wikipedia. That was just the title.
Because do you know how Daredevil was got his powers?
I've never read the actual origin story. Only seen the horrible Ben Affleck movie.
Well, you know how it happened though. I mean, he got hit in the face. Like his eye, he's blind.
Yeah.
And he got hit in the face
with like toxic chemicals.
Or radioactive, or something to that effect. But yeah, that's how his eyes mutated. I saw an ad for it. I never actually read it, but apparently there was I don't know if it was like a parody of the Mutant Ninja Turtles or trying to cash in on what they had done, but like Elephant Samurai something, like Teenage Elephant Samurai, like whatever. And I remember seeing the ad for it, but I never actually saw the comic.
I found the thing here. The Turtles' origin contained direct allusions to Daredevil, the traffic accident between a blind man and a truck carrying radioactive ooze, a reference to Daredevil's own story. Indeed, in the version told in the first issue, Splinter sees the canister strike a boy's face. The name Splinter also parodied Daredevil's mentor, a man known as Stick.
Right.
The Foot, a clan of evil ninjas who became the Turtles' arch-nemesis, likens to the Hand, who were a mysterious and deadly ninja clan in the pages of Daredevil.
Not just that, but like they fought Wolverine a lot too. Like every time you see Wolverine like butchering a bunch of ninjas, they're always Hand ninjas.
Speaking of Wolverine, guess what I just got a hold of?
Oh, what?
The entire series of the X-Men animated series. I'm like 4 episodes in. I just started rewatching them. That, and I also have the entirety of the Real Ghostbusters animated series.
No, I like that one a lot.
I love it.
I like the fact that they're the one that's actually worth watching, because it's so like, what the fuck am I watching? Because there's a reason that they had to call the Real Ghostbuster cartoon the Real Ghostbusters. Did you ever see the other Ghostbuster cartoon?
No. There's another one?
Well,
that aired the same time?
Yes. That's why they had to separate that's why when they did the Real Ghostbusters, it would because there was another Ghostbuster cartoon that had nothing to do
with the
movies. And that TV show or that cartoon.
Well, maybe that's how because the very first episode of the Real Ghostbusters, I don't know if you remember, but the very first, like season 1, episode 1, they actually say in the story the Real Ghostbusters, because at the beginning of the episode they trap these three ghosts. It's like a family. It's like the father, the wife, and this stupid giant baby. And Slimer ends up accidentally letting them out of the containment unit. And so they're like, we're going to get back at the Ghostbusters. So they become their own Ghostbusters thing, and they trap the big baby as the ghost in this trash can. And then start putting the Ghostbusters out of business. And at one point, Janine picks up the phone and says, hello, Ghostbusters. No, we're the real Ghostbusters. So that might have been like a direct result of that other
the original,
cartoon,
like,
unless it's just coincidence.
The Ghostbuster cartoon was insane. I haven't watched it in years. I'm sure it's on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But the
like other one.
The other one, it was insane.
Did it have a similar premise?
No,
or was it just
I don't.
stupid?
I don't remember. I don't remember enough about it. I just remember being a little kid watching it and actively thinking, "This is insane." Like this is legitimately maybe one of the weirdest things I've ever seen up to this point in my life. Like it was insane. Well, look it up. I mean,
I'm curious.
It's. I think one of them had a flying car, but not like a flying car, but like it was like a Victorian, like with a propeller or something weird like that. That's the image that pops into my head. Bear in mind, I probably haven't thought about that in 30 years. But that was why the real Ghostbusters
later called Filmation's Ghostbusters. Hold on. Actually, you know what? I think I might have seen that. I recognize the logo. Because it has... Yeah, there's the logo for it. Later called Filmation's Ghostbusters is a 1986 animated television series created by Filmation and distributed by Tribune Entertainment, based on Filmation's 1975 live-action television show The Ghostbusters. But not one word, Ghostbusters. It is not to be confused with Ivan Reitman and Columbia Pictures' Ghostbusters. The success of Columbia's unrelated film spurred Filmation to resurrect their own property, producing an animated series based on the characters from the earlier TV show. And later changed it to Filmation's Ghostbusters to avoid confusion. Weird.
I had no idea about the original TV series.
Apparently it was live action, too.
That's got to be nuts.
Related shows The Ghostbusters. I'm clicking on it. Oh, wow. Even better. Look at that.
Holy shit.
Is that a gorilla?
Yeah. A gorilla. with a hat. He has a hat with
it's a beanie with a propeller.
Yeah. I think that's all you need to know, people.
Let's see. The was a live-action children's television series that ran in 1975 about a team of bumbling detectives who would investigate ghostly occurrences. Only 15 episodes were created.
Holy shit. I had no idea. I'm glad we talked about that, because that picture is the craziest thing I think I've ever seen.
And he's holding this crazy contraption on the front of them, and the other guy's wearing a giant detective's hat.
It's like fucking Sherlock Holmes on meth. I mean,
Apparently the guy in the gorilla suit is Bob Burns.
Who's Bob Burns?
I don't know.
But they made a point of telling us.
Yeah. Bob Burns the Third apparently was on a show called Bob's Basement. Oh, no. Something else. Bob's Basement is the informal name given to Burns' collection of props, costumes, and other memorabilia. The New York Times stated that it could be described as the premier film museum in the Los Angeles area, though it is not open to the public and has no regular hours. Interesting. He was the guy in the gorilla costume. Yeah, so I need to find this show.
Yeah. But that's why I always loved the fact that when they talked about the real Ghostbusters, there was a reason that they had to put
the real
yeah.
Crazy. And I thought it was all just because of that line in the first episode. But guess not.
Yeah, that was fucking... But I had no idea that was based on an actual...
A live action? Crazy. Was there a gorilla in the animated one?
Dude, it's been 30 years since I've even thought of that.
Apparently, it was actually... The Wikipedia article was actually edited 3 months ago.
So somebody's been thinking about this shit.
That's crazy. Number of seasons 1, number of episodes 15. It was aired on CBS. Audio format mono.
Well, they used to do a lot of... I don't know. I remember, because it was kind of winding down when I was a kid, but, Saturday mornings, you'd get up at 6 o'clock in the morning is when they started running, the children's programming. And in the 70s and 60s, apparently a lot of that was not animated. It was like live action stuff like Land of the Lost. And
yeah, I remember that show.
Well, but...
And then they tried making a movie and it was awful. Wasn't it with Will Ferrell?
I actually like that movie
really?
a lot. Like, if you... Like, I saw it in the theater.
I haven't seen it. I just heard that it was bad.
It's one of the... It's one of those things that when you're watching that cartoon... Or when you're watching that movie, it is, like, insane. Like there's some stuff in there, like, when I was watching it, like, I was dying. The humor on it is like, very close to my exact sense of humor. Like, there was a lot of stuff in there that I was just like, holy shit. I'm well aware of the fact that, the theater is probably 25% full when I saw it. And I'm the only person laughing. The people in the audience, like, I was well aware of the fact, like, no one's going to get this. But it was very... there was a couple of scenes in it that fucking killed me. Like, it was... I personally like that movie.
I'm going to have to check it out.
But they had a lot of... there was a lot of shitty, like, science fiction stuff, with, like... There was a lot of science fiction stuff I remember, like in the in the children's programming on Saturday mornings, and even they had some on Sundays too. That made Doctor Who look like fucking the revamped Battlestar Galactica. Like, the production levels on that shit were horrible, but like it was really entertaining and kind of stupid, which was kind of the point. Mm-hmm. But then and then they got And then the animated stuff. There's a great documentary on YouTube about this one cartoon that was so far ahead of its time. Thundar the Barbarian.
I think I remember that.
But that fucking is one of the trippiest cartoons ever. But there's a documentary on YouTube talking about that show and like how far ahead of its time it was, because that show was nuts. The premise is a comet comes between, like, present day, comes between the Earth and the Moon. It doesn't hit either one, but it causes the Moon in the present day to split in half, which fucks the Earth up really bad. Like, it causes all the cities to get fucked up, and it fucks with the tide in the oceans, and it takes, like, it basically destroys civilization as we know it. This is a fucking Saturday morning cartoon. That's how... this is in the opening credits of the show showing this happen. Like, all the cities on Earth being destroyed, the moon cracking in half. And I just remember as a little kid watching it going, what the fuck? And the cartoon... actually takes place 1,000 years in the future, and it's this weird mix of like Star Wars, because like the main character has this sword that's made out of lightning, and he turns it on like and it's like this lightning sword, but he's this barbarian character, and then he has this kind of savage like mutant creature is his sidekick, and then I believe the main character, like the girl in the show, was like a Planet of the Apes style, like a astronaut from the past that somehow gets caught in the future, or somehow, if I remember correctly. But she also was like a wizard. She has like all these magical powers, so it's like this weird mix of.
So she's from the past, but
if I remember, I could be wrong about that, but anyway, the female character is because they're constantly like, she's the kind of the foil in the sense that they're constantly like seeing or running into shit from the past that they don't know what it does, and she was always the one that
she was the context.
Well, she was like, that's how they use the strained spaghetti, like that's not a hat, that kind of thing, like. But she would always like be explaining like things that they were seeing, like that they didn't know what they were, but it's this weird mix of like psychedelic mix of like fantasy, like Conan the Barbarian kind of fantasy mixed in with like hardcore science fiction. Like they would run into robots and like guys who understood tech and stuff and were building all this like fucked up like laser guns and shit mixed in with guys carrying battle axes. But it was a fucking cartoon, like, and you're watching it. But the whole backdrop of the show, like every episode, like, oh, they're in a devastated New York City. Or they're in a devastated New Orleans. Or like the whole backdrop of the show was kind of like America just
destroyed.
Just destroyed. Like, but this was like a show that they expected little kids to watch, and you're watching it going,
everything you know and love is dead. Look at these robots.
Yeah, but it's but that documentary on it was basically like the creators of that show like talking about how they went through the process of like coming up with the idea and like fine tuning it, actually pitching the idea, going into the production of it, and putting it out there, and then the show was actually doing really well. And the network actually canceled it despite the fact that it had really high ratings because it was so fucked up. Like they couldn't, like the people putting the show out just couldn't get like this is insane. Why are we putting this out there? Like this can't be good for little kids. But like that show, that cartoon is probably responsible in large part for like my love of like science fiction and fantasy, like that cartoon in particular.
This cartoon created Jesse.
Well, I mean, like it's a pretty like in terms of my like things that I find interesting today, I can always trace back to like cartoons like that because there were others. I mean, there was a lot of weird because they were. You got to remember, man, some of those cartoons back in the day, and I wish I could remember more of them. But like some of that shit would only air like 5 or 6 episodes, and or just one season or 1 or 2 seasons, and then they replace it with something else, and then but the weird ones, and this was the other thing too, like that shit would start at 6 a.m, like when they would start airing that stuff, and the stuff that they would play at 6 a.m, even as a little kid, you were cognitively aware of that's when they air the really weird shit. You know what I mean? Like you got to get up like it's actually worth. I mean, and you got to remember, like I'm a little kid with fucking insomnia, and I would go out of my way to be up, even if I intentionally made the conscious decision to not go to bed, to be up at 6 a.m. to watch this weird, and because they put some weird shit at 6 a.m. Like, I mean, like the stuff that was blatantly not for little kids. Like this is, we're gonna put some shit on here that'll warp some goddamn minds. At 6 a.m. they start, and then like as
any child that is lucky enough to wake up in time for 6 a.m. cartoons, we're gonna fuck you up.
Well, and then as the morning went on, the cartoons got more and more like little kid oriented. Like by 10 or 11, that they'd be airing like Scooby Doo and shit like that. But the shit like before that was just like, what the fuck am I watching? But my original point was, I was a young kid early enough to remember the kind of waning live action stuff that they would have in there, because a large percentage of it was actually live action.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some weird shit. I mean, and I wish I could remember, I remember this one, really hardcore, science fiction show that they would air, really early in the morning, that had some of the actors that were later in, the Buck Rogers TV show. But that shit was fucking insane.
I'll have to look up. They probably have, a list of that kind of stuff somewhere.
Oh, you would think.
I have to look it up.
But I would check out that documentary on Thunder the Barbarian. It's a really good... And that's definitely, a show... It's definitely in one sense, it's not as good as I remember in terms of, the animation is horrible. It's not it's not up to today's animated standards at all. But if you really, are watching the show, God damn, that's fucking insane. But it's, on one hand, it's for little kids, and on the other hand, it's blatantly not for little kids. And it's this weird mix of, what am I watching? But check it out.
Well, I'm BJ McMurtry.
I'm Jesse N.L. This is Wendy.
That's Wendy. And Jesse's now going to eat her.
Oh my God, BJ.
I had to. Good night.
Thank you for listening to the More Better Narrative podcast. Find us at mbnpodcast.com or on iTunes. For more information, visit us on Twitter or Facebook at mbnpodcast.com or email us at morebetternarrative@gmail.com.